Good Sunday morning, everyone. I'm Terry Wood in for Chad Booth on the county seat this morning. The state has just issued a new catastrophic wildfire reduction report. It contains some interesting things, including another strategy rather than just fighting the fires. We're going to find out what's in this report. We're going to talk to some of the state experts about what we expect to see this summer. But first, let's begin with Don Dunwell, who shows us just how bad the Utah catastrophic wildfire problem can be.
The continuing trends of large, hot-burning fires that strip the forest right down to bare, scorched earth are becoming a huge problem across the West. Over the past decade, across the nation, there have been an average of 64,588 fires and nearly 7 million acres burned each year.
This year in Idaho, we burn up another 1,700,000 acres. Last year it was almost 2 million. And you know, we continue to add fuel load in the forest and expect that it won't burn. Well, it is burning, and that's not a good way to manage the forest. You know, it's not good for the environment, it's not good for wildlife habitat, it's not good for the watershed, it's not good for the economy.
The forests are in the worst condition they've been in 50 years. We've got forests that are burning down. Then you have the fire and the devastation. We're seeing it now. Huntington Canyon, after the fire, you then devastate the watershed for generations. That's the road we're on now.
A number of local government officials, researchers, and land managers suggest there's a better way to manage the forests where fuels are removed and put to good use.
Back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, I think some of the, there was clear cutting, and people were, going in and just taking timber and the like, and so there needed to be a change then, but I think we've gone too far. I would be happy if we could actually manage the land, and actually do what's environmentally correct for the resource, rather than burn the land and kill the wildlife in the catastrophic fires.
The hard part is when we have these federal agencies and these really well-intending bureaucrats that are in there, and park managers and BLM managers, etc. These individuals really care about the land, but they can't do anything. They can't get out there and do any restoration because all these different stakeholders are holding them and fighting against each other, and so nothing's getting done. So the default on our public lands now is no action.
In Idaho alone, if we were harvesting the sustainable yield, we would be creating about another 20,000 jobs. Plus, we would have the impact of the revenue from the sale of that product. It is a huge economic impact to all the western states.
Some states, such as Arizona, have found ways to mitigate the impact of catastrophic wildfire. After the Wallow Fire, Apache County, Arizona passed a resolution asserting its authority to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Apache County citizens. They basically told the Forest Service, clean it up or we will. Their assertion resulted in coordinated efforts with the Forest Service to thin the problem areas in the forest.
What we've discovered is we've ended up finding a lot of ways that we can actually co-manage lands productively and get along together, and we're sharing resources that neither party realized the other had.
The end goal of local officials is to find ways to reduce the fuels in the forest, to stop catastrophic fires, and create a balance where the forest is an asset rather than a liability. For the county seat, I'm Don Dunwell.
Thank you, Don. When we return to the county seat in just a moment, we're going to talk more about what's in this state report and what you can do to prevent catastrophic wildfires.
Making sure your food is safe, it starts on the farm and continues every step of the way, all the way to your local grocery store. So when you bring home food for your family, you do so with the peace of mind that it's safe, fresh, and nutritious. Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, the guardians of Utah's food supply and sustainable agriculture. Visit ag.utah.gov for more information.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
So, what brings you to town?
What brings anyone to St. George? A couple rounds of golf, a little relaxation.
What, is that all?
Is there more? In a retirement community? Should have stuck with the back nine.
How would you spend an extra day in Utah Valley? Stay one more day. Visit utahvalley.com to make reservations. Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Welcome back, everyone. We should point out today that on the county seat, we are up at the state capitol taping this program, so you may hear some noise in the background. A lot of visitors at the state capitol and a lot of school children this year, but we always enjoy coming up here because we think we can get the information firsthand from our legislators there. So let's introduce those who are going to help us talk about this Wildfire Strategy Report today. Senator Evan Vickers, he represents Iron, Beaver, and Washington, parts of Washington County. And Lou Ann Adams is the new Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture and Food. We appreciate you being here. And Brian Cottam, who is the State Forester. Every year at this time, we hear kind of predictions of what the wildfire season will be like. What is the outlook for this coming year? We've seen how bad it is in the past with Don Dunwell's report. What do we expect this year?
Yeah, it is a question that we get regularly, particularly at this time of year. We have really refined predictive services that our office and our fire staff tracks, and that information becomes more and more pertinent as we get closer to the official fire season in the state of Utah. Right now, the northern part of the state has been receiving a lot of moisture, and so we might have a sense that things could be less challenging in the northern part of the state, but southern Utah is really, really dry, and I think folks there, and rightfully so, are somewhat concerned. But within our division, we do have wildland fire responsibility, and I think that we prepare for the worst, but we plan for the best.
What is the official wildfire season? You mentioned that a second ago.
It begins June 1st.
June 1st and runs on through?
6 months.
6 months.
Through the end of October.
Plenty of time. And I guess predicting wildfires seasons like predicting hurricane season, you just give it your best guess and based on the conditions.
But we do get plenty of information based upon the weather patterns and the soil moistures and just a whole range of conditions. So we're able to have a pretty good sense going into the season.
Now this report that we've been talking about in the program so far, Catastrophic Wildfire Reduction Strategy. It's rather interesting. It's just come out, and it mentions an emphasis on prevention rather than just fighting fires this year. Luann, tell us about this report and why the emphasis is changing.
Well, this report was actually put together by my predecessor. He headed the committee up, and it was a collaborative committee. We had federal and state and county officials all at the table to put this together. I think this is a model for the nation, actually. It's great on the strategies, you know, to put things together. And the theory behind it is every dollar that you spend upfront preconditioning, you can save $17 on suppression.
Senator Vickers, you've introduced a resolution that will adopt the recommendations in this report. Tell us about that and tell us what the outlook is.
Well, you know, it's a good procedure because the governor put together, and he recognized up front the idea behind the mitigation or prevention and the dollar per $17 that Commissioner Adams talked about. And as he put that commission together, and that challenge is to go out into the regions and have these groups come together and identify projects that could be used. And so that's what we did. I served on the task force in my area, and under the direction of Commissioner Blackham. And as we worked together to decide what projects would be available and be something that we could be doing in the state, each county was charged with coming up with one project. And as that came together, then this report came together, and the idea behind it is prevention. So, you know, when we think about wildfire, you know, I think most of us think about something out in the forest, maybe somebody's cabin burning down, or something like that, or homes threatened, you know, because we've built in wooded areas, those type of things. But there's a lot of other things that go into play. You know, you might think you don't often think about watershed, but you consider watershed. Now, if a fire went across near a community and wiped out their watershed, you know, that would have devastating effects for many, many years on that community. And so those are the types of things and the types of projects we're going to go in and try to prevent. And as we work on those and do fuel treatments and that, we know that we can preempt a lot of things. And we can also prove through this process that the state can actually manage these things on a very good basis, maybe even better than the federal government's doing right now.
And you've had, the area you represent has had several catastrophic fires in recent years. Milford Flats comes to mind immediately, and I was a reporter covering that one and was just amazed at the immense size of it. Somewhere around Beaver too?
Well, the Milford Flat Fire, there's been a number of fires around Beaver, and then also the New Harmony Fire. We do a good job of suppression, we really do. And you know, I've heard Brian say that there was something like 4,000 fires in the state last year, but most of them were contained very quickly because of the local people jumping on it and those that are fighting the fires jumping on them quickly. But when they get out of hand, they can be devastating.
There's a rather interesting comparison photo in this report here of the effect of grazing on land and how it removes some of that wildfire feed and non-grazing. It shows a picture of a barbed wire fence, and one side is a grazed area, the other side is a non-grazed area. As a rancher yourself, Luann, tell us about the effects of grazing in preventing wildfires.
You know, grazing is really good, especially if you do timed grazing and you bring those cattle in, and when the cheatgrass is young, and they can eat it down before it has the growth. And you can even use that as a fire break later on if you do intensive grazing enough. And so that is one of the great things. Plus, when you graze, there's a great seed bed caused from the hoofs of the animals. And then when you plant later on, you've got organic fertilizer. So we cover everything with grazing. It's a great tool, and it's one of the tools that's used in this plan.
And do you see a difference in the mountainous areas as opposed to the more wide open ranching areas? Say the sheep grazing in some of the mountain areas, do they have the same effect that the cattle would in some of the more wide open spaces?
Sure. In the end, it's all a reduction in fuel. The fuel is the one thing that we can control. We can't control the weather, we can't control the topography, but we can definitely control the fuel, and that's what this report to a great degree is built around. What is the work that we can control out in our communities on the ground? So yeah, with the grazers and browsers out there, they're one more tool in the box. And
when you do control what's on the ground out there, other than just grazing, what tools do you use?
It's more, in fact, I think a lot of times in this state we talk just fuels reduction, and that's important. I mean, that's one thing that a lot of money goes into that. We have a lot of work going out across the state in our communities, but there's also community preparedness, and the term that's used is fire-adapted communities. Doing things like community wildfire protection plans, making sure that your transportation systems, your communication systems are all in place to be able to respond appropriately. And then there's the preparedness activities that we would do with local responders. So the firefighters have the training and the equipment and everything that they need to be able to safely and efficiently fight wildfire. So those are the three activities that we've built this report around.
Well, community preparedness, there's something that all of us, not just state officials and firefighters, can get involved in and will aid in the cause. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we're going to find out exactly what you and I can do to prevent wildfires.
Skiing is expensive, right? Well, how about we do something about that? Eagle Point, Southern Utah's premier resort located right outside of Beaver, Utah, is proud to announce $25 lift tickets all season long. Ski and snowboard Utah's newest resort for the lowest price, and find out why the Point, with its family-friendly staff and great atmosphere, will become your second home. $25 lift passes all season. Go to eaglepointresort.com for eligibility and restrictions. 5 lifts, 40 named runs, 1,500 vertical feet. Endless possibilities. Eagle Point Resort.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
I lived in Phoenix and then down in Orange County in California, and I met a small town girl and she brought me home. Just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody. You know, the sporting programs, the dance events, all these kinds of things, you run into people you know and that care about you and your family. And that makes it just a wonderful place to have little ones like this.
Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah.
Have you ever wanted to recreate the world around you? Add some excitement, culture, adventure? Well, there's no need to remake the world when that perfect combination already exists. Just remember 4 words. Welcome to Weber County. In Ogden, you'll find everything you're looking for, from the top of Powder Mountain to the restaurants of our revitalized downtown. Ogden, Utah, mountain to metro and everything in between. Visit Ogden.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we took a break, we're talking about how the communities throughout Utah, and you in particular, can get involved in prevention of wildfire in the first place. And it all comes out of this report just issued from the state. Biggest strategy is prevention. And it mentions in here as one of the recommendations, increase public understanding and participation. Brian, what exactly do you want to do with this?
The way that our office approaches it, but I think the whole statewide steering committee, is wildfire is everyone's problem, because the total costs of wildfire beyond just suppression can impact everyone in the state. Loss of life and property, range and habitat loss, air quality issues, health problems. So it really is everyone's issue, but it begins with the homeowner themselves. Those folks that live on the wildland-urban interface or are at risk of wildland fire, they have a responsibility in terms of what they do on their own property that can help firefighters better and more safely do their job. As well then, local government can do things such as ordinances and such at the local level, but also making sure that their local fire departments are trained and ready and equipped, and they do that in partnership with us at the state. So all the way up the line, from the homeowner to local government, state government, federal government, there's a role to play, and that's some of the policy conversations that are going on.
Now, you're talking about several levels of government here. You've got local, counties, state, and even federal lands in Utah. Does this present some problems in getting the recommendations in this report adopted?
As Brian's outlined very well, we have some issues we need to deal with. Now, we want to partner, especially on these projects, we want to partner with the federal government. When they have projects of mitigation source that may be close to ours, we want to partner with them so we can leverage the money. Then as we move forward with working with the counties and the cities and the communities so that they can adopt the policies, and that's part of the strategy in this resolution that's given us charge that we will develop a policy, catastrophic fire policy over the interim. And there's some things, some changes in direction we want to take and put our state more in charge. We want to be able to prove that our state, number one, can do it better than anybody else. We want to be an example to the rest of the western United States, and this is something in the direction we're really moving towards. And as we can put these projects on the ground and prove to the legislature and the governor that we can do this, and we have going to be successful. And as we come back, we've been successful in reducing suppression costs, so we can save money on the back end by putting money in on the front end, and then to work with the communities, the counties, the cities, and the state, and as well as the federal government, in developing the policies that will allow us to move forward in the best way possible.
What would it cost to adopt all the recommendations in this report?
Well, if we put together all of the projects that we've identified, a significant amount of money, a lot more than the $2 million that we have appropriated this year, but the $2 million is the amount that Brian's staff feels like that they can get on the ground, get contracted by July 1st, and for the most part get done this fire season.
Yeah, it's important for folks to understand that this is a massive problem. This is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar long-term problem. It took 100 years of mismanagement of forests for these fuels to build up. We didn't get here overnight. We won't solve this overnight. We won't solve this unless the federal government commits to doing the work that they need to do on BLM rangeland and on Forest Service forest land. This state can only do so much, but even on the lands that we have responsibility for, we're talking millions and millions of dollars and a long-term commitment. But it's not just about the money. There are things that can be done in terms of partnerships and relationships and education, preparedness, that don't cost that kind of money, but it's a commitment to do the right things to lower those costs on the front end.
Giving people the knowledge of what to plant, not plant, what to clean, what not to clean. And you say it's a long-term commitment. How long do you think you ever or will get to the level of fire prevention that you want to be at?
It probably may not happen in my career, and part of the challenge is that the fuels grow back. So even if we got to where we wanted to get, it would still require maintenance over time.
Well, you're a young man. You've got a lot of career ahead of you.
So I hope we can solve this.
get something done by that time.
Yes.
When we come back in just a moment, I want to talk to you, Luann, with your perspective as a rancher also, and what those who live in those areas can do and what you've done before, too. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Landscapes as diverse as the people who venture to find them await. All you have to do is find a place to begin. Moab, Utah, in Grand County, where adventure begins.
Rediscover your sense of adventure. Welcome to San Juan County. Discover the past. A change of place. Utah's San Juan County, where life is elevated.
Cedar City, Utah is home of the Tony Award-winning Utah Shakespeare Festival. But did you know that we also offer a different kind of play?
Escape the gray. Head south for clear skies. Cedar City, Bryan Head.
Along Interstate 70 and Highway 89 is an area that is rich with high mountain peaks, vast forests, lakes, streams, historical sites, and a climate that is perfect for outdoor adventures, no matter what the season. Whether you visit Sevier County to catch one of the many celebrations, experience a country-style county fair, or be part of various concerts, sports, or equestrian events, you will be greeted by local residents with a smile and a welcoming hand. In the center of it all, Sevier County.
Welcome back, everyone. We are again at the Utah State Capitol for the County Seat program this morning. You may hear some of the noise of the tours in the background as they go through the Capitol, but that's democracy in action as you get to see your legislators work. We're talking about wildfire prevention, not only suppression, but prevention, and the new report that's come out from the state, Catastrophic Wildfire Reduction Strategy. Luann Adams, you're Commissioner of Agriculture, but you're also a rancher. And you just told me you own 14,000 acres up in Box Elder County.
That's right.
What, from a rancher's perspective, have you done on that land and you'd recommend that others do to prevent wildfires?
I think one of the biggest things that we've done is we've planted some green strips on our ranch. We planted what we call forage kochia, and that forage kochia stays green till December. And we've had a fire on our ranch, and I've actually seen it stop before it got to where our house is, and it just stops it in its tracks. So it's really good. You know, and the state has invasive weed programs, and we are aggressive with weeds and getting rid of weeds on our ranch. And I would suggest that everyone participate in that. And the state also has grazing improvement program that's offered to ranchers and landowners, and there's some funding that comes from the legislature, which we thank the legislature because I think there's been 400 projects. Some of them have removed pinyon junipers, and they've worked on a lot of water projects, and they've also done some green stripping like I've talked about. So
this forage kochia that you mentioned, and not everybody lives on a 14,000 acre ranch, but many people have an acre or two, and we saw some homes burn last year up off of Highway 40 and in that area. Will that also work for those homeowners?
Absolutely, absolutely. If they would clear their other storage that's around their places and plant that forage kochia, it would really help in those wildland urban.
Who would they contact to get some of that? Where would they go?
The state.
Is that, well, the agriculture department or the forester?
Homeowners can always contact my office, the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Land. We have 6 area offices across the state, so we have local staff, local foresters, local wildland urban interface specialists that could come out and assess property, work with homeowners, not just their landscapes, but even things they can do with the house, with the structure itself to make it more fire safe, fire resistant.
So you actually have quite a few programs that are in place right now, even beyond what's recommended in this report.
Yeah, absolutely. Between the Department of Agriculture and Food, the Department of Natural Resources, there are a number of initiatives that are funded by the legislature that we know already make a difference, not just in reducing the risk of wildfire, but for many other good purposes across the state. One of them out of the Department of Natural Resources that we'll work closely with as we proceed in implementing this strategy is the Watershed Restoration Initiative. And it includes partners from all across the state, from all levels of government, but also individuals that are participating, ranchers and so on.
And while we are up at the state capitol, we've gotten word that your resolution, Senator Vickers, to support the projects mentioned in this report has passed both houses and just awaits the governor's signature.
That's correct. Representative Joe Briscoe is the House sponsor. He notified me that it passed the House this morning, waiting the governor's signature. The $2 million that we've set aside from the Sovereign Lands Fund to start working on these projects is in the budget, so we're in good shape.
So are you optimistic now with these new programs and that resolution passed? You're optimistic about this summer?
I am. The statewide steering committee for this catastrophic wildfire reduction strategy meets again this very afternoon to talk about the proposals that have been submitted, how we may be able to spend the funding at the end of the session. But we know how to solve this problem. That's why I'm optimistic. We need a little bit of support from the landowners to the legislature. We're telling the right story. We're gaining that support. I'm really optimistic.
And you mentioned that meeting. That's right. We did promise we'd get you out of here in time for that meeting, so we better wrap things up. Let's once again thank our guests this morning, Brian Cottam, the state forester, Luann Adams, the commissioner of the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, and Senator Evan Vickers, who represents Iron, Beaver, and parts of Washington County. Thank you for joining us on the county seat this morning. I'm Terry Wood.